I don't know, they call it the big game? I don't know.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
You know, it's been a pretty torrid news week here this week, and we've been dealing with controversies, investigations, big-time money deals at the state government level and all that kind of thing. And of course, it's this little minor conversation about impeaching the President of the United States, which has really dominated our thought process in my state of mind. So I feel like we've finally made it to Friday, and Friday is the day that we try to chill a little bit if we can, and the Super Bowl is Sunday, and so do you mind if we just relax and enjoy the concept of the game? I've got two standouts to explain the whole thing to me, and I'll know exactly what to do on my SportsBetRI app when I'm done with them, because I'll definitely put at least a couple dollars down. A lot of prop bets. Gresh will explain that come up in a second. But I don't think we can start the conversation this week without talking about this tragedy, and I wonder whether the loss of Kobe Bryant and the repercussions of it and just the mood of sports America, and America in general, will impact Sunday's celebration and competition. I guess not for the players once they get on the field, and Gresh can explain that because he's been on big important fields before, but welcome guys, thank you. Ruthie's debut, by the way.
About time.
Very nervous about being on this show, by the
Well,
way.
it's Dave Yorke. Please, she's entering your state of mind.
No, she's a consummate professional. And boy, she ad-libs her way through many successful reports outside and inside stadiums, so it's a pleasure to have you there.
Thank you.
This is...
Yeah, thanks.
This is... And then you.
He's here too.
And then you.
Yeah.
And I was promoting the show, you know, Ruthie and Gresh. I think maybe that might not be a bad idea for like a radio show.
We were just talking about
The
it.
Ruthie and Gresh show, mornings.
Mix in some music, and it's the easiest gig in America.
You know, when I first got here, they said, you know, you got to be able to stand up to Gresh. And I said, challenge accepted.
Yeah. Well,
Here I
now
am.
you're standing up to 2/3 of them.
Yeah. I know.
Right? So,
great.
you know, there you go.
That's a good line.
I know.
That's a little
that's a good
easier.
one.
Dave Yorke fires back. The state of mind's funny right now.
Do you, but what's not funny is this awful thing. I mean,
Yeah.
how no one can wrap their minds around the tragedy. I don't think anyone has perfected an explanation of it because it's unexplainable. Having said that, what are your individual gut feelings about its impact on the nation's sports celebration, which is Super Bowl?
Yeah, well, I think it's important also just to kind of set the stage of, you know, when I found out, I think everyone has their own story of where they were when they found out that this
The
was
question
happening.
we posed
That's right.
that you know, when we came back on Monday, where were you when you heard about it?
I just so happened to be in New York City, traveling back to Providence. I was at the train station waiting for my train in Penn Station, which in a lot of ways is like the mecca of sports, right? Madison Square Garden's above you, and everyone's kind of, it's just the center of maybe, you know, traveling America, right? And people are finding out on their phones, and people are on the floor. I mean, screams. It was,
Really?
Oh yeah. People were in disbelief, calling family and friends in tears. And I think that really spoke to just the magnitude of who he was and his impact on not just the sports world, but the world. This was a man who was a celebrity and was, you know, he won Oscars last year. So he's transcends sports in a lot of ways. And so I think that just kind of was very representative to me and kind of allowed me to see the impact that he's had and just how tragic this has happened. And we talked about this week also, but you can't really compare it to anything of someone of his age with his celebrity and his caliber of athleticism and who he was, for him to pass away in such a tragic event with his daughter. I mean, it's just, you still can't believe it.
What's it going to do to Sunday?
I think the NFL appropriately honors him. You do it at the beginning of the game, and then you kind of move on. And I think a lot of the players want that too, but I do not expect the NFL to really belabor it. They'll do something classy. They'll honor him. They honor the tragedy. There might be a little charitable donation, maybe to a foundation to make the NFL look good, or some players will take up a fund, but I think the NFL will touch on it. I don't think they're necessarily going to belabor it. If they do, it might be more in the Super Bowl pregame.
I talked to Stephon Gilmore this week for a story I'm working on, and you know, a lot of people, what people forget is that a lot of NFL players were also great basketball players. You know, Stephon Gilmore said to me, basketball was my first love. Like, I loved playing basketball. The McCourtys were all state basketball players. So people in all sports looked at Kobe Bryant as their hero, and he's really kind of this current generation of superstar. So I think, you know, it's necessary for the NFL, even though it's the NFL, Kobe Bryant was an NBA player, I think it's necessary to at least acknowledge it in some way.
I think the other thing, too, is when Brad Stevens, Celtics coach, said this was the Jordan of their era, right? So we're all in that. Dan's a little older than me, you're older. For me, it was Jordan. For Ruthie's age group, it is Kobe Bryant. And I think...
You know, it's actually, that's a really poignant point. For me, it was Magic and Bird.
Well, yeah.
For you, I mean, Jordan.
Right. And there's that evolution there.
You know.
And when you think of the NBA, it went from arguably Magic and Larry to Jordan to kind of Shaq to then Kobe, and then it's LeBron now. So you've had the evolution of the superstar. Here's what I really underestimated, and I talked to Bob Ryan on the radio show, and he said, look, I've covered this game for 50 years. Even I underestimated the global impact of Kobe Bryant. That's what's caught me off guard. I would expect Laker fans to show up and stand in front of the Staples Center and all mourn together. I didn't realize that people would be doing the same thing in China and in other countries because of Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, you did a good job, I think, this week of addressing the turbulence in his life prior to him, you know, straightening things out. I mean, he had a tough allegation and a civil resolve to a problem that he had, and
you can't ignore it.
You can't ignore it, but at the same time, it causes everybody to talk about how, you know, in his current, you know, helicopter doesn't make a misalignment in the fog and hit the side of a hill. Nobody is talking to Kobe Bryant about what happened 20 years ago.
Right.
He had changed the conversation dramatically with some good personal work and revelation. It's not the kind of thing that haunted him in real time. It's something that you can't forget with his passing. But I think for the most part, America has, I don't know, reconciled.
Well, I think there's two things going on. There's the whole recency bias of the day now versus 2003. If you look at what went down in that case, there are now laws in the state of Colorado that protect people who are making allegations against someone. So there was something that came out of it, whereas nowadays we wouldn't cover it the same in the media. Arguably, something like that going down now, Kobe Bryant might have gone kapoof and not have really gotten a chance to blossom into the basketball player that he became. And I think the other thing, too, is...
that's not a subtle point you just made. That's a really... The whole Me Too and the whole dynamic of the way the genders are dealing with each other is right. So it's a building block of consciousness or craziness, depending on your perspective.
And the other thing, too, is that Kobe's wife stuck with him. They did go have children. He ended up with all girls, which, in a way, it's almost like, okay, now you're going to learn. And Kobe was, and he was coming out of that, and he was showing us his personality. I think the great Kobe Bryant was... I'm going to hem it in. I'm not letting people in. I need to be laser focused on being great. Now we were learning the other sides of Kobe Bryant.
And I think the heartbreak is, and you know, tendency is the celeb focus, but you got 8 other lives, including his daughter and anybody who's the father of a daughter. And I am. It just the hugging photos, the together photos,
and Ruthie's got 2 sisters too.
I'm one of 3
so
girls.
It's like, right, so you're both in the same boat in terms of that kind of connection.
And I think what's so heartbreaking and tragic about what was happening with Gigi was that she was 13 years old and was going to be a star. I mean, UConn basketball was recruiting her at the age of 12. So this is a girl who had a bright future, and I think also when we talk about Kobe Bryant reconciling and, you know, maybe making up for those allegations, you know, he was the proponent for the WNBA. I mean, he was a supporter of women athletes, women's sports, and again, it goes back to him having daughters. And I think, you know, that's just makes it that much more heartbreaking that we didn't get to see her kind of succeed. And I love the story that kind of circulated on social media that Kobe Bryant tells, is that people would come up to him and be like, you know, UNV got to have a boy. We need a Kobe Bryant Jr. And when Gigi would be standing next to him, she'd be like, I got it. You know, I got it. And he tells that story so glowingly in an interview. I think it was, you know, Jimmy Kimmel or something. But
she might have changed the WNBA
Yeah,
with the
that's-
whole,
that's
you
not-
know.
and he was on his way.
And
to
he would have
changing
helped
it.
too with a lot of resources and just opening doors. Not that the NBA doesn't have infrastructure, but it hasn't exploded. It's viable as a sports league in part because of the connection to the NBA. But a daughter of a former athlete of the level of Kobe Bryant might have just taken the league to another level.
WNBA will have to find some well-calibrated way to remind people of what that mission that he would have had was, you know. But you're right. The
And I think
impact
other
real time
players
won't
are
be
going to
there.
jump into that too. Like
Yeah.
other players who have daughters, I think this might have been the awakening for them
Yeah.
in terms of maybe lending their celebrity to help that league.
Well, clearly, the length and depth of this conversation it shows the consciousness of America, and you know, headed into the Super Bowl. But given that, there is a game, and yeah, we have a tradition of moving on, right? Let's move to that when we come back. Stay with us. You know, the one thing I have noticed, I'm sure the reporting is going on, but maybe we're not receiving it as much. You know, the pre-game stuff to the Super Bowl, I think, has been quelled by the Kobe Bryant tragedy. But there's always prep, and the network tells us about it.
She's ready right now. You can play on her right now. But, you know, obviously there's a lot of things that need to happen on the field this week. You know, we've got pregame shows, we've got halftime shows, we've got postgame shows, all get rehearsal time.
The field certainly looks ready for the rigors of game week, but it didn't happen overnight. The process began 2 years ago on a sod farm, and 35 folks from stadiums across the country have been brought in to help.
Brand new fields, which is normal, you know, for Super Bowl. We put in brand new fields whenever we have, you know, a natural surface. And it's just, yeah, it's just prepping that and getting it all ready. But we feel it looks pretty good to me.
But that doesn't mean it's a finished product.
Constantly testing, monitoring moisture and growing conditions and temperature and disease pressure. We also test it for hardness on see whether the compaction is getting there for concussion protocols, things like that. So it's constantly being looked after.
And as we learned earlier this season in Nashville, sometimes you have to expect the unexpected.
We do our best to anticipate everything. Can you anticipate every single detail? You know, I don't know. We certainly try. So we have contingency plans for contingency plans, you know, just to try to anticipate all the different elements and all the different things that could happen.
Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's what we do.
You were saying during the break you watched the media night.
It just doesn't have the same. It didn't have the same buzz and
So
energy and
clearly
excitement
the tragedy,
around it.
clearly, but as you get to it,
Absolutely.
you know, these athletes, coaches, and fans, for the most part, who've never experienced a Super Bowl, deserve to be able to celebrate and focus on this thing. I mean, this is the epitome. This is the top of their professional dream / competition.
And listen, if any city is going to be able to make you happy, it's 75-degree and sunny Miami, Florida. To make, you know, it's kind of a perfect, beautiful situation, you know, to make people, you know, feel better.
You
I
both
think
have been to so many Super Bowls. The week of. Now, by the way,
it's my first year not being at the Super Bowl since covering the Patriots.
Well,
how big of a joke is
well,
that?
Andy was joking about, you know, after the Patriots got bounced out, about the upcoming playoffs. You know, what were the next round? You know, what was anybody going to do?
Right, what are you going to do?
You know, it's
Around
been
here,
weird, huh? You feel like a fish out of water, both of you?
January, like, what is this month? Like, we don't we
Well,
don't know how to spend our
luckily
time.
for us, there's the whole Brady thing looming, and
Yeah,
everybody
plenty
is
of
kind of,
news.
you know, chicken littling that the Patriots
Yeah, let's get to that.
dynasty's over.
I parked that for the last segment because I want to talk about that. So let's do
Okay.
the Super Bowl. What's your thoughts about that situation?
San Francisco's winning this game.
I am riding high with Jimmy G. I like it.
See, she likes Jimmy G. I don't dislike
Well, I
Jimmy
love the
G as a
defense
part
too.
of it.
I like the team,
Is
but
that-
I'm the
is that-
the fighting Jimmy
San-
Garoppolo's.
Yeah.
Is that all Patriots loyalty gook coming out of you right now? Is that
no,
what that
see,
is?
first of all, I'm not a Patriots necessarily fan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. You know, I didn't grow up in New England, so I've just covered
She
the
stood
team.
on the dugout at Cardinal Stadium in
but sure.
shorty
You
shorts
know,
and was
he-
doing the
he-
thing back in the day with the Cardinals.
I was a little bit of a cheerleader
Yeah.
for a bit, but I
Google.
obviously moved here, started covering the Patriots, which is an incredible franchise to cover at the age of, when I moved here, I was 24, 25. And I got to cover, 2 Super Bowls. And I'm so grateful for that, and the greatest quarterback of all time. But when they succeed, I succeed, so I root for them in that sense, because then I get to do fun things. But I'm not necessarily a fan. I like Jimmy Garoppolo because I like to see that he's succeeding, and that it almost proves Belichick right.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And I like him, and I think that he's a clean quarterback. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. I think he's smart, and I think he's going to do enough to win this game. Whereas on the other hand, you look at Patrick Mahomes, and he's a little risky. And you are going to talk a lot about Andy Reid and how you don't trust him.
Well, because Andy Reid, you could give him, you could say, Andy, here is your countdown on the clock, and he would still screw it up.
Yeah.
Like, the guy can't tell time. It's unbelievable over the course of his career how he's screwed that up. Look, I think for San Francisco, they're the most balanced team by far. They also have the one strength in their defense that no one's talking about, because no one wants to talk about defensive linemen unless they're getting sacks. But the big boys up front for San Francisco are going to win this game for them. They have the ability to smack around the Chiefs' offensive line, and the only way the Chiefs, to me, win this game is if either San Francisco completely soils themselves on offense, which I don't think they will, or if Pat Mahomes says, shit, I'll put on the cape. Come on, boys.
Yeah.
I'll carry you to winning a Super Bowl.
The key, I think, in a lot of ways, is they just got to be able to contain him, because he's so good when he's able to escape and move and run around and kind of throw off his opposing defense. So if he's able to if the San Francisco is able to contain him and keep him uncomfortable, I think that's really going to be what we'll see.
The Chiefs have been flirting with disaster.
Correct.
These places, right?
Yeah, their defense ain't good.
But they're not coming back from a 3-touchdown deficit against the 49ers.
Oh, agreed. Because
Right.
the 49ers have the ability to be physical and run it, and their defense is better. Look, the numbers, to me, go in San Francisco's favor, right? If you look at their defense healthy up until December, they were giving up about 165 yards passing per game. In December, a bunch of guys got hurt. They got right for the playoffs. We saw their pass defense go back to what it was. I think they're going to hold Pat Mahomes to under the betting line number of the whole 300 yards in terms of an over-under of his passing performance, unless that D-line can't hem him in. I think they're going to get pressure. Will he escape? Will he throw the ball down the field? Will Pat Mahomes make plays outside of structure, they call it in the NFL. But San Francisco's pass defense is geared to deal with Kansas City, and San Francisco's sneaky fast. Kansas City, a ton of speed. San Francisco's got speed guys over there, too. In a blur, they'll be gone. You make one mistake, and the Chiefs' defense is chasing a guy.
It just felt like San Francisco's run game has been so dominant in these playoffs. And that takes the time off the clock, right? I mean, that's the
Makes it easy for the quarterback. That's the other thing. And you were talking about Jimmy G, Ruthie.
He's going to do enough.
There you go. But he's okay with that.
Yeah.
And look, for a period of time, that was Tom Brady as well. Before it became the high-flying show, it was Tom Brady's willing to do whatever. If Jimmy G throws 5 touchdowns or 4 incompletions, they win the game. The guy didn't care.
So that old cliche of Garoppolo has to stay within himself in this whole thing? Is that what
See,
this is?
I don't think so. I think they can ask him to throw it 50 times and win, and he can also throw it 20 times and then win
Or 9.
if they get rolling. Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy G, you can ask him to do whatever. What's great about him is that mentally, he'll do whatever you ask him. He won't be sitting there being like, come on, we got to throw it.
If there's something crazy to happen, and we've had a lot of Super Bowls lately, the last decade or so, we've actually been entertained by the competition. There was a time there when these games were just so lopsided and it wasn't good. But if you can imagine, hypothetically, what would be the holy cow thing in this game, what could it be?
Holy cow thing in this
That
game.
San Francisco completely collapses early and the Chiefs jump up, like, say, 21 or 28 to 3. And San Francisco just can't climb back into
Their
it.
style doesn't allow for
Well,
it.
and Kansas City could then push on the. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing. That both teams need to keep pressing on the gas. So
yeah,
whichever
that's
team
interesting.
ends up getting the lead and takes the foot off the accelerator, they're playing with fire.
But
You've got to keep going for 60 minutes, even if you beat them by 60. I don't care. Don't take your foot off.
I think what you said is interesting, too, because if Kansas City jumps ahead, you have less confidence in the 49ers being able to come back than the Chiefs, because we just saw the Chiefs come back from, whatever it was, 3 touchdowns. So you have less confidence in the 49ers being able to jump ahead, whereas if the 49ers jump ahead 17-0, 21-0, you're not so worried
You
about
got to
the
be
Chiefs.
careful.
All right, so you've got your notes. Do with them what you need to do. When we come back, theories on what Tom is doing. Stay with us. Well, it does keep the sports talkers and reporters busy to be figuring out what the GOAT's actually doing. I can truthfully say I don't have a clue, and I'm glad I'm not in your particular part of the business so that I can embarrass myself trying to predict it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to, I mean, you've been
Everybody's wrong.
No one has a clue.
Yeah. It
No
ain't
one
about
has a
being
clue.
right or wrong. It's trying to crack the code and figure out what this guy's going to do.
Have you cracked the code?
No, because here's what I'm stuck on, and this is why I can't get any intelligence from ground sources, let's say. When it comes to Tom Brady, what does he want? Does he want money? Does he want to win? Does he want to play till he's 45? Does he want to go to Vegas where TB12 can be expanded? Does he go to LA where he can do that as well? Is Tom Brady thinking about football? Is he thinking about money? Is he thinking about his future? I don't know. And that's the hardest part to kind of figure out.
We did early on, didn't you and I talk about it, and I think, Ruth, you might want to weigh in on this, but I thought that he really just wanted to negotiate a full complement of support around him to stay at the Patriots.
Well, that's kind of what he's done his whole career, is he's taken a pay cut so that they can build a team around him. And I think he's at a point now in his career where he's like, hey, I'm trying to play till I'm 45. If you're not building a team around me, why am I taking a pay cut? So I think there's kind of a lot of factors that go into that. But, you know, it's so, I was talking about this with Yanni actually yesterday. I think Tom might want to leave. I think he might want to leave and go see what else is out there, for whatever reason that may be. Whether it's I want to get away from Bill, whether it's I want to see if I can win a championship on my own, whether it's I want more money, whatever it is, I think he's going to end up back in Foxborough, because I think that even if he wants to go out there, I just don't think he's going to be able to do that. I don't really have any logic behind that. That's just kind of how I feel.
No, but let me give you a theory.
There's a titillation to change.
Sure.
Change is exciting.
Sure.
We have 45 seconds.
Brady can put a ton of pressure on Kraft and Belichick by just saying, I'm coming back for one more year and I'm retiring. Because there is labor uncertainty in the NFL after this season, Brady can say, I don't know what's going on with the league. I wanted to play to 45. Now I can't. So final year, hopefully things go well. And then he looks at Belichick and everyone goes, they look at Belichick, and then the pressure's on to make Brady's final year a good one. That's how Brady maintains leverage over Belichick and still comes back and gets away from the business stuff.
He needs weapons around him to stay.
And fans will be demanding of that if Brady takes that tack.
So if you had to put your last 100 on whether he goes or stays,
Coming back.
Coming back.
Coming back.
And at minus 350, you're really not making a lot.
Is there actually a line on it?
Well, the offshore sports books are getting into that game.
Those guys.
Yeah, I think it was minus 350
We're
to
all
him to go
about the
back
legal
to the
betting
Patriots.
here. We're all about the Red Island
Sure.
sports bet.
I don't want to be a tax evader.
Make sure you follow Ruthie's reports on Eyewitness News, and of course Gresh talking about this every night, weeknight 6 to 9 on WPRO. Be right back. Kansas City's going to steal it. Just telling you. I just do. Hey, guess what? Big conversation with the Chiefs of IGT and Twin River Monday. You enjoy your Super Bowl and stay safe. Good night.